guys, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. So today I'm really excited about this video. I swear I say that like all the time, but I feel a lot happier filming when I'm using my phone because it's just so much easier. But anyway, I have been thinking about this video idea and like how I wanted to do it, and now I've kind of figured it out. I have played with these palettes enough to be able to give you my full like review and opinions on them. I didn't want to do a separate review video for every palette because there's just so many. So I have 6 palettes here that I want to talk about. Actually, one of them I don't have here. I'm just going to put a picture up here because I ended up returning it. But anyway, we're going to kind of rate them from 1 to 6, and just because they're at the bottom of the list does not mean that they're a bad palette. They just it didn't work for me, or it's not as good as the other ones. So let's go ahead and start with number 6, and that is the Tarte Magic Star Holiday Collector's Set. Now, I actually did a review on this recently. I will link it below, and I will put it up in the cards, whichever way that goes. And, you know, you can check that video out if you want to see the full review. But ultimately, this palette just bored me, and the quality of the shadows was not there. Like, I got the holiday palette from Ulta, Tarte's holiday palette from Ulta last year, and I really liked the shadows. I did end up decluttering that because I hated the packaging, so I didn't reach for it. But the shadows were wonderful, with the exception of a few of the mattes. This year, the palette just, like the eyeshadows, the mattes were all really weak. The shimmers, some of them looked really nice in a swatch, but you would like really have to build them up on the eyes. The intensity, even when you did build them up or use like a setting spray to make them pop more, they were still kind of weak for me. Like the vibrancy and the intensity just weren't there. And I have a lot of eyeshadow palettes, and it's gotta be something really special for me to keep it in my collection at this point. So I did end up returning it, even though I paid for it with points. I wanted my points back. Like, I just didn't think that that was up to Tarte quality that I expect, even from a holiday palette. So I did not really love that palette. I think it could work for some people, but not for me. So that is the bottom of my list. Number 5. This one, I'm really bummed that it's number 5. I really wanted to love this palette. A lot of people do love this palette, so this might come as a surprise. But it's the KVD Saint Sinner palette. This packaging is gorgeous. I wanted to love this so much. The colors, you open it up and it just looks beautiful. It's beautiful. I mean, look at these colors. I think part of it is that the cohesiveness is not there. I completely understand the, you know, the thought process behind doing the palette this way, because it's supposed to look like stained glass windows. This is what a stained glass window looks like. You know, it's more of a rainbow kind of effect. I can't quite pinpoint what my issue with this palette is, except that I feel like it's work to use it. Like, I'm not excited to use it. I'm like, I gotta use that palette again because I gotta find a way to love it. And I've probably used this a good, I don't know, 15 times. And out of those 15 times of using it, I've maybe done 5 looks that I liked. And even the looks that I liked, I didn't love. For the most part, I think there were 2 that I did really enjoy. But also, like, I don't feel like this palette has the lasting power that the Metal Matte palette had. I don't feel like it's as easy to blend, even though when you swatch it, the shadows, for the most part, feel a lot softer. I felt like some of them went on patchier. You guys may know, if you've been watching my channel for a while, that I didn't like the Shade and Light Eye Contour palette. That just didn't work for me. I couldn't get those shadows to blend well, and a lot of people love that palette. So maybe, I don't know, it's just me. I don't like that formula. But I love the Metal Matte from last year. I love that palette. I still use it. And actually, this palette has been making me want to use that palette, and I've pulled that palette out a few times because this palette is just not what I wanted it to be, and the Metal Matte was like the perfect holiday palette for me. So basically, The color selection in here is just, it's a pretty dark palette, and I guess I'm more into lighter colors. I thought that I could make it work by just doing the lighter colors on the eyes and then pulling in some of these brighter, darker colors like on the lower lash line or something. But then I had like 3 looks that I could do that were light enough for me, you know what I mean? The lasting power for me wasn't there. I had a lot of fallout, even if I used you know, a glitter glue or a setting spray, you know, wet my brush. I just had a problem with the lasting power. This palette overall, I wanted to love it. I know a lot of people love it, but for me, it doesn't work for me. The number 4 palette on my list, now this, again, this is not a bad palette. This one I actually really like. It's similar colors, but it's not as high on my list as the other 3 that I have here. And that is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Prism palette. This is a gorgeous palette. Like I said, I like it. I just don't like it as much as the other ones. But this is like, I think this is what I wanted the Kat Von D Saint Sinner palette to be. This is just easier for me to work with. You've got, you know, you've got these mattes that just glide on. They blend out really easily. The shimmers are... Like this lucid shade is very kind of a gummy texture, but you can make it work. It's not as bad as that like first shade in the Subculture. This shade, you can make it work. I use all of these like shimmer shades with my finger. You have crease shades in here that are like kind of obvious crease shades. I feel like Unity is a nice crease shade. Lure, this like purpley pink, is a really nice crease shade. Eden, I'm wearing in my crease today. I think it looks great. I have a little bit of Parallel on the outer corner. I've got Eternal all over my lid. And then I have a little bit of Sphere in the inner corner. I find every look I do with this turns out. That's the bottom line. Like with the Kat Von D palette, 1 out of 3 would work, you know. Sometimes I had to use a makeup remover wipe and take off my eye makeup because I hated the look so much. This one, that doesn't happen. Everything I've done has worked. It's easy. Colors are really pretty. I think this is a really good holiday palette. It's not overwhelming because you don't have so many colors to choose from. So if you're not like a pro makeup artist that's like super artistic with your eyeshadow, but you do want to play with color and stuff, I think that this is a better choice than the Saint and Sinner palette. But I know people would disagree with me. Like Olivia, I love her channel. Liv loves her makeup. She likes the Kat Von D one better. I like this one better. So to each his own. I just think that this is easier to work with. Oh, and it's cheaper. This one's $42. This one is $62. And it's easier to store and easier to travel with. Next palette, this is number 3 on my list. I love this palette. This is the Lorac Mega Pro 4. This is their holiday palette. This is a beautiful palette. So half of the shades are matte, the top half are matte, and then the bottom half are shimmer. They go on, some of them go on like differently than they look in the pan. They're just really fun to play with. I adore this green. I adore this purple. Oh, I adore this, like, what is this? Fairy Tale. It's like a silvery purple kind of shade. This unicorn color, which is like this pearly, pinky, purpley, like changing colors kind of a shade. This whole palette, it's very easy to work with. It's easy to put together a look. You can do a natural look, but you can also really play with color in this palette. I think it's a great palette, especially if you're fair. If you are of a darker skin tone, it may be a little bit harder to work with because it is a very cool toned palette. The shades are light, which is probably why I like this palette, because these kind of colors work for me. So the number 2 spot actually goes to the Too Faced Just Peachy palette. This kind of surprises me that this is actually in the 2nd place, but this is a palette that every time I pull it out, I am so excited, which seems kind of weird because the colors, like if you look at the pans, they really do kind of all look the same, but they're not. Like you can do these really multi-dimensional looks with this palette, and I really like it. It's also a great palette to pull in and use with other palettes. Like today, I put this like all over my lid before I went in with the Prism palette, and I think it's just a really nice companion palette in that way. But you can also really easily do a look like I'll put just this shade all over my lid and that's it. or I'll do like this lighter shade and then put the peachy one in the crease, or, you know, do like a deeper, smokier, like burgundy kind of look. This is just a beautiful palette. You're not going to get a lot of variety with the kind of looks that you can do, but it's fun to play with. It smells really good. The packaging is just gorgeous. It's like the same kind of packaging, I feel like, that the Becca Jaclyn Hill palette was, which I really like. It feels just very sturdy. I love this little detail here with the peaches that kind of open it up. And I thought this was a snap closure, but it's actually magnetic, which I really like. It has a beautiful mirror. It's only $45, so I think that the price is really good on this palette. I love it. Okay, so you're probably noticing that my clothes and makeup and everything have changed. I'm sorry, this is a really like on-the-fly addition to this video. So my lighting's not very good. It's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon and it's super gray and cloudy outside. So I'm literally sitting like right in front of the window. So anyway, I just wanted to come on here and talk to you about a new palette that I got, and I just couldn't not include it in this video. Now, I have only had it for 6 days. So I have only had 6 days to play with it, so take this with a grain of salt. But I am absolutely in love with this palette, and I would almost tie it for first place, but it's just a little bit below my first place palette. So I'm going to put this in second place, and then that just knocks everything else down the list by 1, I guess. And that is this Marc Jacobs, the Wild One Eye-conic eyeshadow palette. I picked this up at the Sephora VIB sale on Friday. I love it, you guys. I love this palette. It is so, so pretty. Every look that I've done has come out beautifully. It has been really quick and easy to work with. Like, you can just, this is one of those palettes that whatever you put together, like, it's gonna work, and that just excites me so much. And, you know, of course it's fancy as Marc Jacobs. This is the first Marc Jacobs eyeshadow palette that I've ever owned, and something that I really notice about it is that it doesn't like accentuate, you know, wrinkly eyelids. So if you are, you know, getting up there in age, I'm 34, I'm not old, but I'm older than a lot of the people, you know, here on YouTube. And my, you know, your eyelids are one of the first things that show that. And like these shimmery shades, like they just kind of mask the tiny little wrinkles that are on your eyelids. So that's something that I absolutely love about this. They're beautiful, like soft, buttery shadows. I love the color selection. You've got a lot of cooler tones in here, but you do also have a few warm tones. It's just a really great palette. So I'm going to go ahead and swatch a few for you. So here are some of them. I did swatch some of them in my haul video. I don't remember which ones I swatched. So hopefully these are not all the same, but okay, I'm really trying to get my lighting to work with this. But this shade right here is the only one in the palette I haven't played with yet. And I have had just no issues. I have not had issues with fallout. The shadows last all day. They blend beautifully. They're soft, they're buttery. Like I said, the colors, just whatever you put together, it goes together well. They also make it easy for you to create a look because they have these in like quads. So it does make it really easy to do a look. I haven't really stayed within the quads. I think the first time I did use this quad, the first time I did a look. I think the second time I did a look, I used these shades. Today, this was just a really quick look, but I'm wearing this light purple shade and then the deeper purple in the crease, and that's it. Took me like, you know, a minute and a half to put on my eye makeup, other than the mascara and the eyeliner. I did take a little bit of this cobalt blue shade under the lid, and it's such a fun, easy palette. I do want to show you some more shades here. That one is just gorgeous all over the lid, that first one. It's so pretty. It's like this multi-dimensional kind of bluish, reddish kind of color. These are just absolutely gorgeous. My mind is blown. I should have bought this palette instead of the Kat Von D Saint Sinner. I know I keep like coming back to that, but like I really regretted buying that palette because it just didn't work. But this one, like, it has fun colors. It's easy to work with. Everything you do turns out. There's no patchiness. There's no fall out throughout the day, like they stay on your eyelids. This is a really fantastic palette. So I would put this in the number 2 spot, but it's almost tied for first. So my number 1 palette, this is not just my number 1 palette for the holiday season. This is like my number 1 palette of the whole year. I'm obsessed with this palette. It has not done, like they haven't done the full release on it yet. They initially released it at the D23 Expo in, by Disneyland at the Convention Center in Anaheim. And then they did a pre-release, I think I got this about a month ago. This is the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs palette. The detailing on this packaging is just, ugh. They have all the dwarves here. You have your spine. You have even like this back cover, just like the Storybook in the Snow White movie. I mean, oh, so good. I love this palette so much. I get so excited every time I pull it out. It has this mirror, which I don't really use. And then it has Snow White's face with like all of the colors that they used. I don't want to go too much into detail on this because I really do want to do like a full dedicated review to this palette, but they have like all of this information about the inspiration for the palette and how they came up with the colors and everything. It's just so cool. And then here you have all of your shades, and I really like that they have this plastic cover so they don't get messed up. And then they have this bookmark. I like to keep it here so I can easily open up the book and find my eyeshadows. I thought that this looked kind of boring. I really did think that this looked kind of boring, but I wanted it because it was Disney and limited edition, and I never tried Besame, and I wanted to try Besame, so I wanted it anyway. But oh my gosh, this palette is not boring. You can do some really fun looks with it. You can do like a turquoisey blue-green look. You can do like a red and black kind of look. You can do neutral looks. You can do all kinds of stuff. It's such a good palette. The shades are so soft and buttery. They build up and blend beautifully. This is one of my favorite formulas that I have ever found. They're all mattes. This is like a Disney collaboration, beauty palette that's done correctly. I just absolutely adore this palette, and I would highly recommend when it gets released that you check it out. If you're into Disney, if you're into matte shadows, if you're into vintage makeup, this is just fantastic. So that's it. Those are my thoughts on the newer palettes that I have gotten during this holiday season. I guess the Just Peachy palette is not really a holiday palette, but it's a new one that I picked up recently. So I hope that you enjoyed this. I really do recommend all of the palettes except for the 2 at the bottom of my list. Although I do know that a lot of people love that Kat Von D Saint Sinner palette, so that's not to say that it's necessarily a bad palette, just it didn't work for me. So the other ones though, I would recommend all of them if you're considering getting any of those. So I hope that this was helpful. I enjoyed filming it for you. Please let me know if you're planning to pick any of these up, or if you already have, which ones that you love and which ones you don't. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye guys.